This is the Ted Wallison Podcast. Brought to you by Haldanes, the meat people. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortinos, and Foodland locations. Haldanes, the way sausage should taste. And Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. And now, here's Ted Wallison.
My special guest this week is an actor, author, and comedian. He is the recipient of numerous awards, including a Writers Guild Award, a Gemini Award, and 2 Canadian Screen Awards. He's best known for his work on the television series This Hour Has 22 Minutes, Whose Line Is It Anyway?, The Drew Carey Show, and most recently, Last One Laughing, along with a recurring role in CBC Television's Murdoch Mysteries. Welcome, Colin Mochrie. How are you?
I am fine. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for asking. I didn't realize that you originally are from Scotland, and you emigrated to this great nation of ours when you were, what, about 7 years of age? 7?
I was 7 years old, yeah. For some reason, my parents decided to move us into an all French-speaking neighborhood in Montreal. And between their thick Scottish accents and the obvious language problems, it was... I think it's where I honed my charade skill.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you remember about the 7 years that you spent in Scotland? Because I thought about that today, and I thought, what do I remember about the first 7 years of my life? And not really a lot.
No, not a lot. I remember I had a girlfriend, Mary Brown. You can't really get a more Scottish name than Mary Brown. But that I remember visiting my grandparents. But yeah, I don't remember specific places where we lived when I was in Scotland. And of course, I've gone back. We go back every year because you when you're Scottish, you go visit your relatives and you stay for 2 months. That's the thing. It's none of this. We're going to see you for a week. You're there for the long haul.
Yeah.
So I got to spend a lot of time with my grandparents, which was nice.
You didn't spend a lot of time in Montreal though before you moved to Vancouver, right?
Yeah, so like 5 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was around at the time of the FLQ. Our school started to get a lot of bomb threats, so my parents got worried and so quickly moved us to Edmonton, which my mother immediately hated. For nothing. Let me just say, I love Edmonton. I have a lot of friends who live there. Mm-hmm. I think we moved there in November, which wasn't a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very cold.
So, and how long in Edmonton before you went to Vancouver then?
A year.
A year.
It was
I spent 5 years there, 1 year. That old line, right? Now, yeah. It was in Vancouver. You were in high school, and admittedly, not the most outgoing and not necessarily the greatest student. But that's where you kind of got your first taste of show business, and in a high school play, is you played the role of an undertaker?
Yeah. First of all, let me say, I was an honor student up until I discovered theater.
Yeah.
Then it all went to crap. But up to then, I was good. And I was very shy. I was very bookwormy. Uh-huh. And a friend dared me to try out for the school play. So I did, and I got the part of Mervyn Vale, the Undertaker. Mm-hmm. And I got my first laugh, and I still remember that moment, and thinking, okay, I want this all the time. So up to that point, I was planning to become a marine biologist, which wrong in so many ways. So I immediately switched to theater, and the only reason I wanted to be a marine biologist was because I really liked the show Flipper. I think that was the only reason. So yeah, I think it all worked out that I ended up going into theater.
It was a classic program for those too young to remember, and I don't even
you don't
think
see many of these programs now. With there's like an animal. When I was growing up, there was like Gentle Ben, a friendly bear. There was
Lassie,
Flipper, Skippy the kangaroo,
Rin Tin Tin,
yeah. But now that genre seems to have gone.
Because animals were cheaper than humans, and not anymore, because all the animals have agents now, and it's not to say. You were also a big fan of, as was I, the Dick Van Dyke Show growing up.
major fan. It was one of the I remember stealing bits from it to do in drama class. I just thought, I mean, it was so well written and it was so real to me. Dick Van Dyke and the Andy Griffith Show, they were unlike the other sitcoms of the time. They weren't wacky. They certainly had some wacky moments, but there was a realism to it that I really enjoyed. And I just found it very natural and very, very funny. A classic. And it stands the test of time. You can still watch and laugh.
You know, I saw an interview with Dick Van Dyke, and he was talking about the intro, you know, where some weeks the show would start off and he would sidestep the ottoman, the footstool, and in the next week he would trip over it. And apparently there were people in college that were wagering on it, and they found out that there was wagering going on, so they decided to change it around. Like one week he would jump around it, and next week he would fall over it. I thought, well,
I mean, college kids. It's nice to know they haven't really changed over the millennia.
That's right. Now, have you ever met Dick Van Dyke in your travels?
I never, no. The closest I got, I saw Carl Reiner at a distance.
Yeah.
And that was it. My wife, Deb, met Dick Van Dyke, and she is...
Deb McGrath, for those...
Yeah, Deb McGrath. She is an Uber fan. She would do... When she was at Second City, whenever they had to stall while people got ready for scenes, there was another member in the cast, and they would have what was called a dick-off, where they would answer trivia questions from the audience. And she never lost because she was doing Definition, the show Definition. Dave Thomas was her partner. And they were getting ready, and Dick Van Dyke was doing something. And he was in the next makeup chair, and she couldn't say anything. She was just overwhelmed and afraid to say anything in case he wasn't nice to her. And by all accounts, he's just one of the nicest, sweetest men. So,
Colin Mochrie is my guest. You said that you were an honors student. You were also well liked because you were a funny guy who did the school announcements.
Yeah, once I got my first laugh, that became my thing. So we would have like every school, there'd be announcements at the beginning, and I talked the principal into letting me and some friends do the announcements, and we'd get the information for a dance or whatever, but we would do it as a sketch. You know, Batman and Robin were going to the school dance, and so I think I can safely say none of those pieces were classics. But the students seemed to like them, and it sort of gave me confidence to do some writing and do funny characters.
Were you valedictorian?
I was valedictorian too. Yeah.
Now, how was that speech? Was it laced with humor, or were you?
It was laced with humor, and also it tugged at the heartstrings. It covered 3 emotions, so it hit everyone, and it went very well. I don't really remember much of it because I was really nervous. It was the first time I'd actually had to give a speech as myself.
Yeah.
But apparently, from all accounts, it went well. So I was happy with that.
How much of it was improv?
There was a good chunk because I had forgotten. I'd forgotten a major part of it. So I was just like, oh, let's just start talking about some of the memories. And I think I made up like 5 memories that didn't happen to me, but I think happened to my father.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. And I love the line that you were quoted once as saying, "I became an improviser because I didn't like to work."
Yeah.
And yet anybody who's ever tried to do improv, my God, that's a tough job.
Yeah, they're doing it wrong. It's so easy. People always say, yeah, how can you improv? It's like so hard. And it isn't really. I mean, we're all improvising from day to day.
Sure.
We have certain things that we know we're going to do, but how we get there and who we react with throughout the day. The hardest thing about improv for people is doing the things we don't do in life, which is you listen, you accept people's ideas, and you try to make the other person look good. And that's basically it. When I've taught improv, trying to get people to say yes to someone else's ideas, that takes like 4 or 5 classes. Yeah, I don't know, it's deep within us. Immediately, when somebody says something to us, our first thing is to go, no, I have a better idea. Why don't we do this? And in improv, you can't do that. You have to accept, even if the first idea that comes out, you think, this is the most idiotic thing ever, you have to accept it and go with it and somehow find a way to work with it.
And it's one of the reasons why so often companies decide to have these outings with their staff, and they go to places like Second City and they take these courses, not so that to see whether their staff is funny or whether they can make people laugh, but rather improv teaches you to rely on your team. It's all about teamwork.
Yeah. We were, my partner Brad Sherwood and I, we were asked by GE to give this workshop to this team they had that weren't exactly working well together. And they thought that maybe if they improvised, it would open something. So we had this like 2-hour class planned of things we would do. We could not get them to say yes. And so we finally had them face, there were 2 lines. I'd say, okay, each person from each line, get in the middle. You start doing a scene. First time someone says no, you're out. So the line just it's just whizzing by until someone accepted an offer. This scene happened. You heard everyone go, oh. And I said, well, that's all the time we have today. Please hang on to that, and hopefully that will help you in the future. It's just they put up so many barriers to just accepting ideas.
Yeah. Speaking with Colin Mochrie, are you an actor? Are you a comedic actor? Or are you an actor and a comedian and a comedic actor? Or are you all 3 of those things, or do you care?
It depends. Nothing worse than being a comedic actor when you're doing a drama. People,
yes.
I guess a comedic actor. I like to just say I'm an actor with a tendency to more comic roles, because I certainly do feel more at ease doing comedy, but I have had dramatic things. Right now, I'm sort of a semi-regular on Murdoch Mysteries, or I'm a serial killer.
Yeah, I mentioned that, and I had Yannick Bisson was a guest on my program about a month or so ago, and his words were, and I'm paraphrasing here, we hope that he enjoys it and comes back. And I'm thinking, I think he would probably want to do that.
Yeah, because this is something, I don't think, like in Hollywood, they would look at my resume and go, serial killer. I would hope they would, but no, they wouldn't. And what I loved most about Murdoch Mysteries was, I think it was their 13th season, and I just wrote a tweet saying, congratulations on your 13th season. Am I the only Canadian actor who has not been on this show? 2 days later, I got a call. And I thought, it's yet to work elsewhere.
Yeah, and I saw an old episode of Corner Gas the other week, where Brent introduces you. He says, here's a guy who's on every television show, and you just got to show up, having nothing to do with the plot line whatsoever. And I thought, that's really funny.
That was a lot of fun. It's such a funny show. And again, with all these shows I've been fortunate enough to work with, the cast has been incredible. All the fun shows, all the great shows, I think there's that chemistry between the cast that they really like each other, and that's where the fun begins.
Let's go back a little bit here. We were talking about your days in Vancouver. That's where you were introduced to a new concept. It was, at that time at least, called theater sports, which is really, it's improv. Is that where you met Ryan Stiles, or did you know him before that?
I didn't know Ryan before that. At that point, he was a stand-up. And I love Ryan. I think he's very funny. Not the best stand-up. All of his material was about a low-budget zoo and Dolly Parton. But most of his act was him just riffing with the audience, and that's where you saw his brilliance. So I was at theater school, and I saw this demonstration of this thing called theater sports, which basically is, there's 2 teams of improvisers, there's a referee who issues challenges, then there's judges who give scores to each scene, and at the end of the night, whoever has the most points wins. So I saw that demonstration, and then it seemed almost maybe a couple of months later, Vancouver started their own theater sports league. And we were in this small theater called City Stage downtown, and we were on after whatever theater show was there. Ray Michael, who ran the place, lovely man, said, "Yeah, you can have Friday and Saturday nights after the show." So we would go into the McDonald's next door and go, "Hey, come see our show." And they would say, "What is it?" And we go, "We don't know yet. You have to yell things at us, and then we'll have the show." And it went from that to within a year, just lineups around the block. It became the big cult thing. And then that's when I started actually getting work as an actor, because people would sort of see me at theater sports, and I sort of got known in Vancouver, started to do more theater and more television. So improv has been very good to me.
Ted Woloshyn returns in a moment.
Hey, let me take a moment to tell you about my friends at Haldanes. They are the meat people. You know, I've been a fan of their products for years now, and without a doubt, they make some of the best sausage in Ontario. They are multiple award winners, having captured the Ontario's Finest Meat Competition's coveted Award of Excellence on 3 occasions, in addition to dozens of individual product awards. Haldanes has also received the Grand Champion ribbon at the past 2 Royal Winter Fair's ready-to-eat meat snack competitions. So whether you're preparing a charcuterie board or a full-blown sit-down dinner for your friends or family, you'll find Haldanes' award-winning products at fine meat shops throughout the province, now including selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortino's, and Foodland stores, along with their 7 Haldanes locations. Their barbecued kielbasa is my favorite. On a fresh bun with horseradish, it is out of this world. But don't just take my word for it. Judge for yourself. On your barbecue, in your kitchen, or straight from the refrigerator. Haldanes, the way sausage should taste. And as usual, off we go to 190 Baldwin, the home of Tom's Place. It's in the heart of Kensington Market. We've been talking for a little bit, Tom, about wedding season upon us. And I harken back I think it's 8 years now since my daughter got married. And I remember bringing in my son and my son-in-law, future son-in-law at the time. And everybody decided that as opposed to getting tuxedos, all of the bridegrooms were going to get really nice dark suits with matching ties so that after the wedding, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, they could continue to wear those suits. And they looked fabulous. Now, not to say that you shouldn't get a tuxedo, because you've got some terrific tuxedos, which I have too. So either one works. But if you're thinking, well, do I want a tux and how often am I going to wear it? Maybe the suit, it works best.
Ted, that's a very good observation, and you did the right thing. And it's very common where people coming to our store with the groom and the groomsmen, and they're buying fabulous, fantastic suits. And you're going to get much more wear out of a suit than of a tuxedo. Exactly correct. So please come to Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin Street. Great storytelling, Ted. I always loved how you tell the stories.
I tell them from my heart. 190 Baldwin, the heart of Kensington Market. That's where you'll find my friend Tom and Tom's Place.
Now back to Ted Woloshyn.
So at one point you're in Vancouver and you decide, you know what, I needed a bit of a change in my career, and you decide to up and move to Toronto. And you're introduced to Second City. You go to audition in Second City, and your future wife, Deb McGrath, is the one who's doing the audition.
Yeah. And again, this is due to Ryan. He had done at Expo in Vancouver. He had done the second city show there. And of course, he was brilliant. So they brought him back to Toronto to join the main stage there. So I had moved out to Toronto. He called me and said, "Look, they're looking for someone in the touring company. I gave him your name, go and audition." So I did. And I was auditioned by Deb, one of the longest, hardest auditions I've ever done. And then
Was she fair?
I got it.
Was she fair to you?
You start off with like 40 people, and then it goes down to 20, and then it ended up there was 4 of us. So there's the 4 of us. We finished. She comes up to me and says, "It was between you and the cute guy." Oh.
And at no time you're thinking to yourself, "I'm going to marry this woman one day."
No, I thought, well, okay.
Assuming the cute guy doesn't want her.
Yeah, this is a tough room. So and then from then it all worked out. So again, and of course, and Ryan was also instrumental in getting me Whose Line. So I feel, he got me a wife, he got me a job, He may have fathered my child. It's hard to say. That's the kind of friend he is.
God, you owe him big time, don't you?
I do. I really do.
Speaking of Whose Line Is It? They came to Second City to audition the cast there.
Yeah.
To find members for this. But because everybody works as a team, that worked against you somehow.
Yeah, because we did that thing where everybody was supporting each other, so nobody stood out. We were doing some very funny scenes, but it was very equal, so none of us got it. And it wasn't until the next year we'd moved down to L.A. because Deb and her writing partner, Linda Cash, had written this show that was being produced by Imagine Television, and I got to audition again with people I didn't know, so it was like, hey, screw you, look at me. And there you go, young people. That's how you get ahead in this business.
Exactly. There's words of wisdom right there for you. So eventually you got it. Now, there's a British version and a U.S. version.
Yeah.
Were they running simultaneously? I know you were doing This Hour Has 22 Minutes at the same time as you were doing Whose Line, but which was happening when I'm confused? Because as I mentioned at the outset before we started rolling here, that in doing all this research, sometimes it gets a little confusing because the research can be a little misleading or dumb.
Yeah, there's stuff out there. There was a thing out there that I'd killed Ryan accidentally. I backed my car into him, and I thought that's so easy to check. But Whose Line started as a British radio show with people like Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie, and then it went to television. And it was still improv was still a new art in Britain, so they started bringing Americans over, and that's when I got involved. So they always wanted to do an American version. So in 1997, we were actually doing the last of the British version, shooting in Hollywood, and we went right from that to the American version with Drew Carey. So it really wasn't much of a I mean, it was the same production staff, the same producers, so we knew everyone. The only thing different was that we now had to deal with censorship, which was something we never had in Britain.
Of course.
I mean, the things the Brits did to the Queen on that show were unmentionable. But when we started our first couple of tapings, there was a scene where I was supposed to kiss Greg Proops. Or I was in love with Greg Proops. So I kissed him. And then this voice came out of nowhere because the censor had no script to look at. They were in the booth. And they said, can you make up something else, please? So Drew Carey has a real button on censorship. So the next 20 minutes was unusable because he would introduce the next game with words you can't use on television. So they finally came up with this thing and said, here's the deal. We'll do the show, and then after the show, the producer and the censor would fight over whatever things happened. So it didn't interrupt the flow of the show. And one of my favorite memories is that Dan Patterson, the man who created the show, coming up after one of the meetings and said, Colin, we lost the pussy, but we got 2 penises. I love this business.
Well, sounds like a sports trade between 2 hockey teams.
It is.
So you're doing Whose Line Is It? And how does This Hour Has 22 Minutes enter into the picture?
Yeah, I was doing Whose Line. I was doing a guest shot on Made in Canada, Rick Mercer's show.
Sure.
And the showrunner for that, Mark Farrell, was also the showrunner for 22 Minutes. And I was talking to Peter Callahan, and it was lunchtime, and he was saying, God, you work a lot. And I said, yeah, I've been very lucky. He said, well, Mercer's leaving 22 Minutes. You should do that. Just as Mark Farrell was passing. So kind of like my Murdoch tweet, I got a call to maybe audition, and I got it, which was it was excellent. My first season, it was a month after 9/11. Oh. So it was a little, obviously, tense. Nobody was sure how do you make, or how can you make fun of this? So it was great for me having Mark and the great writers plus the cast coming up with ways of, we couldn't go for the main event, so to speak. But the insanity around it, we could still make fun of. We could still make people making fun of the people making the weird choices and letting fear rule their lives.
Colin Mochrie is my guest, and in the meantime, it's a month after 9/11, so not only are you dealing with how do we deal with this from a comedic standpoint, you're now flying back and forth across the border, which was not the easiest thing to do. It still isn't, but that's a pandemic thing now as well. But back then, it was pretty tough.
Yeah, it was insane. Luckily, Whose Line is like 3 weekends, so it doesn't take a lot of time. But it happened at the same time we were just starting up 22 minutes. So I'd have to go film a show and then fly to the other side of the continent. And while I was flying, write scripts for perusal. So it was fun in some way, but it really burnt me out. But I learned so much from Mary Walsh. Is just a writing machine.
Yeah.
I learned so much from her. And Mark Critch was one of the writers on the show at that point. Just amazing people. I learned so much on how to get a scene out there quick, get it started, find where the funny is, then finish it.
Working with Drew Carey in 2 different projects, I keep reading all these things about him, what a great guy he is, how generous he is, and how he takes his cast and crew on cruises and to watch his soccer team out west. And is that all that true? Is he that nice?
I tell you, he is the kind of millionaire you want to know. He is generous.
I'd like to know any millionaire.
Every year he would take the crew and their families of both his shows. And there was one year it was a secret. Nobody knew what it was. Yeah. We got this sort of burnt pirate map. We met at Warner Brothers Studios. We all got on a bus. We went down the hill, and we ended up and all the way there, Drew was saying, "This trip is going to change your life. It's going to change your life." And we got to the Universal Hotel, and there was a big banner, "Welcome, Drew Carey people." And we went out, and people started handing us these folders. And on the front, it said something like, "Find your inner self." So we thought, oh, my God, he's become part of a cult. And then we opened up the folder and said, back on the bus. This is a joke. So he had spent something like $10,000 on this little joke.
Uh-huh.
We get on a plane, ended up in Mexico, then went on this sailing ship for 10 days that went to Belize. And he brought for some reason, his accountant, who kept walking around going, "Do you know how much this is costing him?"
Was it really his accountant, or was it just an actor?
So I think that was like $3 million, that trip. Wow. And he, I can't say enough about him. He's just genuinely sweet, incredibly supportive, the biggest fan of the show, great guy to work for.
And he's a part-time, not part-time, but a part owner of a soccer team in the MLS,
Seattle,
right?
No, I can't remember. He got into soccer at some point during Whose Line, and then just started going to World Cup games around the world, and just became a major fan. And I guess with some of his pocket money that fell down the side of the couch, bought a soccer team.
Yeah, sure, no problem. What do you want for that? Sure, I got that on me. Last one, Laughing. Originally an American show, then done here. I guess I'm not letting the cat out of the bag by saying who won this.
I don't. Well, yeah, it's been a while, I would think.
Because it is available. You won it.
I did, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And with that came $100,000, but not for you. That went to an organization called Camp Rainbow, Rainbow Camp. Tell me about that.
It's a summer camp for the LGBTQ plus community. It's a place where they can go and just be themselves and feel safe. There's mentors. There's all the fun part of camp, and there's also seminars, and it's just a great place where people can be themselves without worrying about anything.
Right.
We got involved. Deb and I got involved a few years ago. We did a fundraiser for them, and then got to know Harry and Chris, who run it, who are just the best people. And then Deb did a fundraiser for them and raised like $80,000. And so I felt I had to do better than that.
Good stuff. And what was that experience like?
It's about one-upping people.
What was that? What was that like working with all those different comedians? Because that was an interesting concept for a show.
It is. It was difficult in that I knew most of them. Mm-hmm. And when a bunch of comedians get together, it's just they tell stories about their worst gigs or their best gigs, and there's a lot of laughter. And so it was at times hard to remember. Oh yeah, that's the main rule. We can't laugh at anything. And it just amazed me how quickly we got into shameless territory. It was like, I thought, were we getting people out with witty one-liner? No, just anything that came to mind. I saw the Japanese version of this, and it was, they were attaching electrodes to their testicles and running around a room.
What?
And I thought, okay, we didn't go that far. So, yeah, it's, but great people. It was so Canadian too. Every time you'd knock someone out, you go, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, well, if it was really Canadian, the grand prize would have been like a case of Orange Crush. Do you remember all those when you were growing up? Were you ever growing up? Yes. The game shows back then, how chintzy the prizes were?
And here's the catalog of stuff you could buy.
That's right, yes. Good luck with the money you're going to get from this show buying anything in that catalog, but feel free to keep the catalog. You talked briefly about, and Colin Mochrie is my guest, we talked very briefly about Murdoch Mysteries. You play a hotel detective, which is, I didn't even know such a position existed, but I guess, I don't know if they do now. It sounds to me like like the present day version would be mall cop. Yeah.
I started off as the hotel detective, and then quickly moved into murdering people in the next episode.
Yeah,
and there's a bit of a jump there.
Yeah, and what are you looking forward to doing now that you haven't done?
I always say the thing I want to do, and time's running out. I want to be the star of an action movie, because I always feel in action movies with the heroes, you think, well, yeah, they're going to be fine. But with me, you don't have that guarantee. You think during a chase scene, his hip will go out, or so. I really wanted to do like a high-level action movie, big budget. I don't think it's going to happen, but
yeah,
you can dream. Keep those dreams alive.
Now, what about directing? Is that something that's in the back of your mind? Are you interested in that concept at all?
I don't like actors.
Yeah,
it's just so hard.
Yeah.
I've never wanted to direct. I directed the touring company at Second City for a while, and that was actually fun. And it was fairly easy because it was all classic scenes from past companies, and so I knew what they were, and most of the I knew where all the laugh lines were. It's a lot of work to direct. It's I see them come in with their big binders with all their shots put. No. I'm lazy. That's why I improvise.
Well, I can relate to that. When you're not being Colin Mochrie, the actor or the performer, the comedian, what do you do to entertain yourself? You got any hobbies? Do you golf? Do you ski? Do you paint? Do you collect pop bottles?
Golf clubs a while ago. I don't know if that was a hint. And I have a couple of friends we golf, and I'm horrible at it. I do enjoy it in a way, it's a very masochistic thing. And, always the last hole, I'm great. And I think, I've broken it. I now know what to do.
That's right.
Next game, I'm back at... but it's nice. It's nice to get out there, and that's probably the most athletic thing. I do all the cooking. Deb hasn't cooked since 1990. So that's my thing. Coming up, and she's gotten... Not happily, but she's gotten some gut issues lately. So I've had to come up with different vegetarian offerings and stuff. So it's been nice sort of keeping on top of that. So that's basically it, yeah.
Do you watch any of the cooking shows? Because there's a million of them now.
Yeah, I don't. The only one I kind of watch is the Great British Bake Off. Mm-hmm. Just because it's fun, but I have friends who are addicted to all the cooking shows, and no, it seems like too much work to sit and watch someone else do it.
And is there something in on your schedule right now that we're going to be seeing or hearing about in the near future? I don't want you to blurt out the fact that Whose Line's coming back like you did a few years ago when you shouldn't have.
I don't know what's happening with that. I'm doing a show right now. In addition, I do a touring show with Brad Sherwood, one of the other guys on Whose Line.
Sure.
And I've also been doing this show with a hypnotist, Asad Mekki, where he hypnotizes audience members, and then I improvise with them.
He actually, I'm sort of torn when it comes to that whole concept of hypnosis. I mean, are people really being taken over by someone else's mind, or are they just doing what somebody's telling them to do because they want to give up? You know what I'm saying? What is it?
Absolutely. And a lot of people have doubts about improv. They have a lot of doubts about hypnosis. So we put them in one area so that they can just look at it, and it's our job to try to prove. I mean, I had a lot of misconceptions about it, and I talked to the people afterwards, and I say, "Do you remember anything?" And they said, "Yeah, remember absolutely everything but everything you guys said sounded like a great idea, so I did it." And that's what happens when you're hypnotized. The part of your brain that deals with self-criticism, the activity there diminishes. So you're not worried about making a fool of yourself. You're not thinking too much. You're just reacting to everything that comes your way.
See, but I would be afraid of making a fool of myself and not realizing that I'm doing that, which I've done drinking. You know what I'm saying? So, but
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, so but you don't. It's like I would be afraid to be hypnotized because I'd be afraid that I would say something that I would regret, seriously regret.
There is that. I mean, so far we've been lucky, and I mean the reason he brings up 20 people is only 20% of the population are open to being hypnotized for a stage show. It's much higher in clinical things if you're trying to stop smoking or get over fear of flying.
Right.
But for stage shows, 20%. And it's interesting watch I'm off stage as he's putting people under, and you can see immediately faking, under, faking.
Right.
The people who are just immediately relaxed, and then there's he'll have little exercises for them to do, and some, like one is just driving a car. And you'll see the people who are actually hypnotized doing it as though they're driving. And then there's the others who are, it's almost like they're driving a clown car or something. So it's fascinating to watch. And I found I didn't know that people can lie under hypnosis. Because we do this bit where I sing a duet with them. And we say, if you can sing, raise your hand. And there have been people who have raised their hand who are fooling themselves. Either they truly believe they can sing, and they're sadly mistaken, or they're lying.
But that's true in real life, though. There are people
that
who believe they can.
We do lie to ourselves at times. Yeah,
they're usually the ones who are directly one row ahead of me when I'm at a concert.
Perfect.
You know?
Perfect.
Singing along to every song and ruining it.
And louder than anyone else.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you. It's been a while since we have chatted, and I'm glad things are going well with you. And I wish you nothing but the best, and all the best to Deb and to your whole family and to everybody you've ever met.
Thanks, Ted. It's always lovely. It's been too long.
Yeah, you take care. All the best.
You too.
The Ted Wallacham Podcast has been brought to you by Haldanes, the Meat People. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortinos, and Foodland locations. Haldanes, the way sausage should taste. And Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. The Ted Wallacham Podcast is produced by Joey Roselli. Technical production by Paul Gatt. Music by Bike Thieves. I'm Becky Coles. Submit your questions and comments to ted@twmedia.ca.